Hello and welcome to another episode of LGOtv Big Talk. And why Big Talk? Because I hate small talk. So my guest today doesn't do anything small. She does nothing small. Her name is Loren Ridinger, and she's the co-founder and senior executive vice president of internet retailing giant Market America Shop.com. You may have heard of it. It's only like $1 billion company that powers internet and entrepreneurs everywhere. Pretty awesome. I can find her wherever her daughter and her grandchildren are, because before we started this recording, I was like, I need to know your skincare routine. You look amazing. And what she said, it was just like, it's them. It's being where you are. It's being with people that you love. So, Loren, welcome to Big Talk, and let's talk about things and causes and people that you love.
I love that, Laura. I'm so happy to be here with you. Since I first met you, I fell in love with you, so I'm excited.
Oh, well, likewise. We were in a clubhouse room together, and I think I said something, and you were like, yeah, and then you amplified it and added to it, and I was like, yeah, and I'm like, I need to know this woman. And then I started researching and digging and learning about you, and I was like, holy crap, it's pretty incredible. But I want to start way back when, because as I mentioned before we started recording, this morning on my run, I listened to a keynote that you gave. I'm a very slow runner, and the keynote was like an hour and 45 minutes, so you kept me company for the entire time. But
thank God.
There is a point where you tell a story about being 17 years old and not being great in school, and your dad being like, you need to get a job, and here's the job. You're going to be an Eastern Airlines flight attendant. And you're like, but Dad, I'm afraid of flying.
I know. And he did not want to hear that. He did not want to hear that. That was a tough one. I think when I go back and I think about that time in my life, I mean, I was really blessed to have a family who had been together. My parents had been together since they were 15, but my mom was the glue of that family. My dad was the one, like the money maker that brought home the bread. So, it was that old fashioned way of like, she had the dinner ready and everything had to be perfect before he came home. And, I'm the opposite, and total opposite. And so, I always felt like it bothered me that, she had to spend her life making sure the dinner was ready, making sure everything was perfect. And even though I love my dad, my relationship was more about, my mom was the one who was always very protective, very conscious of us. And my dad was like, you're going to get a job. This is what you're going to do. And Eastern Airlines was, hiring. And I was in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'll never forget. He was like, you're going to go downtown. We're going to apply. You're going to, see if you can get this job. You work 21 days on, 7 days off. It's perfect. You're getting $28,000 a year. And I was, 17, almost 18. And I was like, Dad, please don't make me do this. I'm afraid to fly. You know what I mean? I don't want to do this. Like, well, you have to do this. I swear, Laura, I got there and it had to be 800 people on the line. I mean, not kidding, maybe more. I thought, I'll never get this job. I'm going to give all the horrible answers.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to do everything I can to not get this job.
Right. I'm going to say the worst things ever. And I got up to that line after like 4 hours. And I answered everything the worst I thought I could. And 2 weeks later, I found out I got the job. I was traumatized. And I thought, this is never this could only happen to me. How could this happen? I don't want this job. I had to go to Atlanta for 4 weeks to train. It was even more miserable because you're with a bunch of women who back then, it's really catty. Like, women are different today. We really support women. We want them to make it. I'm a big, like you, I believe in women and empowering women, making sure that they understand their value. And back then it was more like dog eat dog. Whoever was the best, they had to fight and claw their way to the top. And I was amongst that, and it felt uncomfortable.
Because we saw each other as competition, right? Like, if you're looking around the room and what were there, 14 of you, I think you said, were hired in the keynote.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, well, if there's 14 of us, or maybe there's 20 at training and only 14 actually make it. My competition's not the guys. My competition's the other women in the room. And so it's like, we get trained to compete with each other. And that's just terrible.
It's horrible. And I was there going like, oh, I don't want the job. You can have it. You can shine. I'll show up late. But, I was the one keeping getting the job. And I was traumatized. I came back from Atlanta. I told my mom, this is it. Can't do this. There's a big crossroads in my life right now. And the crossroads was either I'm going to be authentically me, I'm going to become somebody that somebody else wants me to be. And that was a real magic moment in my lifetime because I was just turning 18 and I didn't, I hadn't had the experience of, we have to stay true to ourselves. It was just a moment that happened in time that I knew that if I didn't do this for me, I was going to be living my life and building somebody else's dream, something I didn't want.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
for
big.
sure. For sure. I mean, we're around the same age. I graduated from high school in
Yeah.
1988, and I don't remember somebody saying, "You can do anything you want. You can do anything you want." I remember it was like, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be a nurse, be a teacher. Like, there were very specific things. I had no idea that there was somebody who colored in the drawings on cartoons. Like, I didn't know there was a job.
Yes.
I had no
You're
idea.
right.
I didn't know that you could be an entrepreneur. I had no sense that, like, the person who owns the shop owns the shop. Like, I didn't
Exactly.
know how that worked. And I think what happens is when you're like 16, 17, 18 years old, somebody's like, "Here, pick a trade, pick a college, pick a major, pick a life." And you're like, "Okay." It's
And you
amazing
go with
to
the
me.
flow.
Yeah, and you don't even have a frontal lobe at the time, so your ability to
I
actually
know,
make
it's
good
true.
sound decisions, they're gonna affect the rest of your life, right? But you
It's
had a sense
true.
of who you were even then. Where did
I
that come
just
from?
feel like I knew that I wanted to break out and be different. I knew
Yeah.
that I wasn't made to do something I wasn't wanting to do. I really had
Mm.
ambitions of being like around people. And I love people. I still love people today. I wanted to be around people and I wanted to do the things I wanted to do when I wanted to do them. And I knew that that was going to be challenging because back then, like you said, Laura, nobody's talking about entrepreneurs or how to be an entrepreneur. And there was no schools teaching it, right? It wasn't
Right,
like that.
right,
Today you
right.
can go. Today there's programs that teach about that. And often a lot of universities will talk about, and I've taught at a lot of universities in Miami, particularly about it. And I think, you have to come to that place, and a lot of people don't. And it saddens me a little bit because I'm grateful for that moment. Had it not have happened, maybe I would be on a totally different course today. I would have, maybe went on and worked for Eastern Airlines and did something else, not met my husband, not known what it was like to really take the harder path, the harder path of being an entrepreneur, the one that you kind of have to create yourself. And you take a lot of bullets and arrows and shots along the way, but you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yes.
And so for me, I'm grateful for the learning experience. And it was challenging because, you're dealing with a father who wants you to be what he wants you to be because he thinks if you don't do this, you're not going to succeed in your life.
Yes.
And I think that was like, Dad, I'm going to make it. You got to have some faith in me. But in order for me to really make it in life, I got to do what I want to do and not what you want me to do. And that was a real, a cross pass in my life, which I think, we've all encountered, but we don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
We're all on that path to success and we're not sure what it is. And like you said before, you just choose it. And
You just
sometimes we
choose it.
choose something, and we make those decisions. And I just remember at that point, I kind of removed myself from the way my dad wanted me to be. And I kept hoping he would have hope, but
Yeah.
sometimes you have to take that mental vacation from your own family and say, you know what, I got to do what I got to do. And
Yeah.
so for me, I met my husband and we didn't have anything. My mom was amazing. She would give us like macaroni and cheese and money to get by. And we'd have Wendy's on Wednesday nights at their big super bar. But, I think we made the conscious decision to push forward and that we believe that passion and drive and what we wanted to do we would be able to endure it if we did it together, and that we would encounter a lot of rough roads because everybody thinks that road to success is a straight road instead of it being like a roller coaster. Hell no, exactly right. It's like that roller coaster.
I get so frustrated, as you know, I'm a motivational speaker. I go to all these events, I
Amazing.
get on stage, just like, your Market America event. Like, I get on stage like that and I get people to get out of their comfort zone and to, do
Fired
the hard
up.
thing and get them fired up and to see the version of themselves that they know they can be, but they're afraid to really look at. And one of
Yes.
the things I say on stage is that, like, I think the world's worst advice is follow your passion. Like, it's like the spoken word illegitimate sister of the live, love, laugh tattoo. Like, as
Yeah,
long as you find your passion and follow it, everything's gonna be great. And it's like, that's horseshit. You can't just
it is
follow it because when you
horseshit.
follow it, it's like the minute something goes wrong, the minute it gets hard, you're like, oh, I guess this isn't my passion. I'll find something else. And
It's
it's like,
not. It's
no,
not meant to be.
you need to invest in your passion. Your passion's gonna gut you. It's gonna tear you apart. It's gonna, like, people are like, tell me
Exactly.
what you would do if you knew for sure you'd succeed. That's your passion. I'm like, no, tell me what you knew if you knew for sure you'd fail. And yet you're gonna do it over and over and over and over until you get it right. That's your
You're right.
passion. Go after
You're
that.
right. Most people are afraid to do that because that takes a lot. Listen, let's face it, most people break commitments to themselves every day. They
Every
just
day.
do. And that's why I'm not a big believer in New Year's resolutions, because I make commitments to myself all the time. I live by goals every single day.
Yes.
And so I always laugh when somebody's like, "Oh, I'm doing my New Year's resolutions. I'm making these commitments." The only commitment they keep is the commitment. They never keep the commitment.
Right.
You know what I mean? They break the commitment to themselves because most people are so used to letting themselves down that they don't follow through. And I feel like, sometimes I tell people, I'm like, it's so much easier to succeed than you realize, because most people don't stick with it. Most people don't stay with it. Most people throw in the towel, and it breaks my heart, because most people don't understand is that success is right around the corner, especially right after failure.
Yes.
You
It's on the
have
other
to
side
fail
of
in
failure.
order. It's
Right.
on the other side. You have to fail to succeed.
Right. And failure, we think that failure is finale because we grow up in this world where it's like you get an A on a test, you're good. You get an F on a test, you're bad. Like, we think failure is
Totally.
definitional. And we think that it's something that is finale, and really it's fulcrum. It's the place from which you learn and you grow and you iterate and you change. And could you, how many, when you think back on it, did you learn more from your
Ugh.
successes, or did you learn more from
For
your
my
failures?
failures. Yeah, for my
Right.
failures every time. I always say that if it wasn't for my failures, I wouldn't be where I am today. And by the way, you have to fail to succeed. That's the part that people just miss. They think that they're supposed to just automatically succeed. And I'm like, do you guys know how many times I've failed? So
Also, if
many
you're not
times.
failing, you're not trying
You're not
hard new
trying.
things. You're not you're doing the safe stuff. I mean, one of the things I loved about listening to your talk is you are so fired up that living a safe life is you're just wasting your time on earth. I love the line when you were like, who wants to be put in the ground with their headstone saying not used up? I plan to give my
Yeah, I
body
know.
back completely
I
beat
know.
to shit.
And I
Done.
think, you know what? You're right. You got to be finished up, used up. And I think part of that philosophy, because a lot of times my own people will say to me, "How come you use death so much to motivate people?" But I think
Because
it's
it's
because my
certain.
life, it's for certain it's coming. I haven't met anyone yet who's getting out of this thing alive. You know
Right.
what I mean?
It is
We're all
universal.
going. We're all going. And we're all standing in line waiting for our time to be called. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just inevitable. We don't know what it is. And I'm sure you, like me, Laura, have experienced where you have somebody that you love or friends get taken at times that you never expected to. And you're like,
Yes.
wow. And my mom, 42 years old,
Very
taken.
young.
My dad, 63, taken. And I think to myself, I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave an imprint. I want my daughter, I want my grandkids to say, you know what, Mama, Mimi didn't have to work every day of her life, but she did because she wanted to. Because for her, it was what she believed in. It was her purpose. It was her why. And I want them to understand that it's okay to work hard, and that things happen when you do, and by the way, things can go wrong too.
Yeah.
Listen, my mom worked hard her whole life in a dry cleaner while she was living. That didn't change her life. But my point is this, it's much more about hard work. It's about sacrifice. It's about giving, exchanging one thing for another. When I was growing up and I was 17 and 18 and I met my husband, we were making it. I didn't see my friends. In fact, I hardly had any friends back then because there was nobody wanted to be friends with somebody who couldn't commit to time together.
Yeah.
All I knew I had to do was to commit to making it happen. I was on a path. I put blinders on. I didn't let anything stop me. I figured if there was going to be a way to make it, was up to me. And that's what I did. But most people won't do that. Most people don't want to give up being out with their friends or going out and partying. And, especially at 18 years old, that's what everybody wanted to do.
Yeah.
But for me, I saw it differently. I was like, I'm going to work really hard so I can have the life I choose to have. And I'm going to be able to do the things I want to do with the people I want to do them with. And that's all that I kept seeing. All I kept seeing was one day, when the time's right, I'll be able to spend the time. And that time's come. I can spend time with my grandkids, with my daughter. I can control my schedule, control my time. I don't have to hang out with people I don't want to. We don't get to choose our family.
But we get to choose our family.
Choose
right?
our friends. Yes.
Yes.
We get to choose our friends. And I think that's so critical in life because they're the ones who really put us on track and should be the ones that believe in you. Should be the ones that are behind you.
Yeah, I call them your family, that combination of friends.
Yeah, your family. Me too. They're your family.
And I mean, that's my board of directors, right? Those are the ones, because I could tell my
100%.
parents all day long about my hopes and dreams. But the last time I lived in the same house with them, I left socks in the middle of the living room and put empty gallons of milk back in the fridge. They don't know what I'm capable of. They know me, but they don't really.
You did the same thing
know me.
I did.
Yeah. So I think what happens is we have, like, and I'm sure you see this all the time with people who come to Market America, that they come because they have this idea that they can be more, and they sign up and they go to something, and then they start going through the motions, and people around them start going, well, who are you? And who are you to think you can do that? And why are you
Why
doing
would
that?
you
And
do that?
are you sure? Like, are you going to get fancy on us? And why aren't you
Yeah,
spending more
well,
time with
or
your husband and making dinner every night and all the stuff? And they get all the, like, the noise,
the
and then they,
naysayers, the
it's a
noise.
cancer.
Yeah, it's a cancer. It's a real illness. And that's why I think, most people aren't strong to withstand that.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful force. But let me tell you something, you have to cut those people out of your life, as you know, Laura. I mean, for me, it's always been about that elimination. Like, if I've cut you out of my life, you've given me the scissors, you're gone.
Oh, yes.
I refuse to have those people in my life who bring me down. In fact, people know me so well around me. My circle's been so close for so long and so tight for so long that if I have, like, July 4th is coming up and we have people on the boat for the 4th in New York, and my friends will be like, do you mind if I bring so-and-so? And they'll tell me all about them, give me a little bio about them, because I'm so conscious of who I put in our circle.
Yes.
That people have finally grown to accept it, understand it, and recognize it and appreciate it. So you can come on the boat and meet anyone, and everyone will treat you like they've known you forever because they're the right people. But it's so easy to fall into the trap of those that you talk about. Oh my God, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to succeed? Well, who am I going to hang out with if you go make it? You can't leave me.
Right. I'm going to keep weighing you down.
Yeah, I'm going to keep weighing you down. I'm going to be that weight on you. And, most people don't understand that it's okay to love someone and not have them in your life. Most people don't understand that it's okay to love someone and say, you know what, Dad, like I did with my own father, I love you, but I need to take a mental vacation from you, because you know what? I'm determined to make it. And one day you're going to be really proud. And I'll never forget, I was on, HSN for a few years, and they had recruited me to come over there. And I remember my dad called in on the show. And I remember just being so moved when he called in and he said, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. And, I thought, this has got to be, 10 years ago. And I thought, wow, it took them all this time to finally say that, but people grow and people learn. And because, we accept our parents because they come from a different generation, from, the man's doing what he has to do to make the family survive. And I understood that. So I never was really mad at him because it's all he ever knew. I truly believe that my dad did the very best he was taught to do from his own family. But for me, I wanted him to understand, as much as I love you, I've got to take a mental break from you. And it's okay to take a mental vacation from people that you love, as long as you understand I'm always going to be there for you, Dad. But right now I got to do something for me. So if I check out, it's not because I'm gone. I'm just checked out for a minute. And he really told me, I'm proud of you. And I understand why you had to check out for a minute. And I think people appreciate when you're open and when you're honest. And, it's okay to say to a friend, you know what? I love you. You've been in my life for a long time, but you know what? We're not seeing eye to eye on things. And here's the thing. I want you to make it so bad, but I must want it more than you do. So here's the deal. I'm going to check out for a minute. I'm going to do what I got to do. And, I'll be watching you along the way. And I hope you get where you need to be. And I hope you'll be there when I'm on a mission. I'm going somewhere. And people will mostly check out and say, oh, whatever, and they just say to themselves under their breath, I hope you fail, because that's how people are brought up. But you got to keep going, and you got to be the one who proves them wrong. And you got to be the one who does it, not for them just, but for you. For me, everything I've ever done was for me. And I say that selfishly because I always did it for me. I wanted to prove to myself it was possible. And then if the benefit was for everybody else to see it, well, that's amazing. But I really wanted to succeed for me. I really had a strong desire to be different. I wanted to be better. I didn't want to be my mom. As much as I loved her, I didn't want her to be stuck at home making dinner and waiting for my dad. Not that there's something wrong with that. I don't want to give the impression, because I'll have mothers come at me and be like, no, I like doing that. That's okay. But my mom would be cooking in the kitchen and my dad would say, hand me the salt and pepper, and he'd be standing in front of it. I didn't want that for me.
Yes. 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 Yeah. I mean, it's funny. That's what I write about in Limitless is that like it may like your purpose may be curing cancer. Awesome. Your purpose may be making a ton of money so that you can make different decisions or your kids can make different decisions than you were able to make. Your purpose may be building a business. Your purpose may be buying a Maserati and a beach house. It's totally cool. Your purpose is your purpose. And if your purpose is building a business or serving a leader you care about or solving some world problem or nurturing
Yeah.
a family, whatever, it's your purpose,
Whatever it
period,
is.
end of story. But what happens is we get like handed these purposes. It's almost like it's hereditary. Like your mom worked for
It is.
$3 an hour until she died at 42. That's going to be your thing too. And we end up making these decisions based on our past and not based on our future. And one of the things I thought was so interesting in 20 years of doing executive search was that the internal candidates always ended up leaving if they didn't get the job, not because we didn't treat them well. We treated them great. In fact, they hired us
Yeah.
to do other searches in the new organizations, but they left because the simple fact of wearing the clothes, talking in the voice, answering the questions, sitting in the interviews for the job that they were not in yet, but thought maybe they could have, they imagined themselves in this place. And then they
Yeah.
started making decisions based on the future. And I think what's so interesting about the work that you do is that so much of it is promising a future to people who have never seen that before. So you have to get them to believe it and believe that it can be for them. And
And
then they have to
visualize
do the
it.
hard work and visualize it. Right. And then
Yeah. And I
once they
think that's
visualize, they can't
important.
unsee it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. For me, it's like I've learned that it's really hard for people to believe in themselves. And
Yes.
all of it is we're products of products, right?
Mhm.
We're a product of our own family. And that's why I say, I wanted more for my mom. And even though she loved being a mom and would have done anything for my dad, I think things would have been different if she also felt she could have done something for herself.
Mhm.
And sometimes we put ourselves last as women, especially. We put ourselves
Oh, yeah.
last. So we put the kids ahead of us, our grandkids ahead of us, our husbands ahead of us, our work ahead of us. And instead of saying, hey, where's the time for me? And
Mhm.
so we then accept everything that people give us. So you talk about we make decisions based on our past. Well, we also make decisions based off of our family and our friends' experience. And when we do that, we suffer also. Because I always tell people, don't worry about what anybody's experience is, because I can assure you, because somebody else's experience might have not have worked, has nothing to do with yours.
Yes.
And don't make decisions based on your past, because you will be afraid to do anything.
Mhm.
But you have to look at the today and do things about the today, because our whole life, people are always they're controlling our life, right? Like we graduate from high school and the first question people say to us is, where are you going to college? And then we graduate from college and the next question is, where are you going to work? And then we get engaged and people say, when are you going to get married? And then
Yeah.
you get married and people say, when are you going to have kids? And people are moving our life along for us.
Yes.
And that's a lot of pressure.
And we get set up in
Rather
this
than,
way that's like, I'll be happy when. I'll
oof,
be happy when I graduate, so I'll get into college. I'll be happy when
yes,
I get into college, then I can, get a job. I'll be happy when I meet the man, or the woman, so I can have the kids. It's like we get set up that
yes,
happiness is always like the next thing, as opposed to like being
yes.
present and being fully ourselves in
Now,
where we are today.
yes, I think that's so right, Lauren. I feel like we all miss that so many times. People often miss that, rather than saying, I'm okay right now. Where
Yeah.
am I
And
right now? Let me work on the now.
yeah, because I think what happens, it allows us to accept misery in our current
Yeah,
situation and say, well, I can do it
yeah.
tomorrow. I'll do that later because I'll be happy when I do that. But right now I can accept this. And it's like, what, like we do not know how many days we have. This goes back to your death analogy. This is why I think it's so effective. Like you do not know how many days you have. We have the man who built our house died of colon cancer at 47. And I just saw a Facebook post from yesterday where I posted it, where I was like, well, I just turned 49 and he just died at 47. I'm thinking about all the things that happened in these last 2 years that he's going to miss, like the times with my
I
kids and the
know.
growth of my business and all the things like we don't
I
know.
know.
So like, I want to go back to you at 17. So you meet JR, you guys
Yeah.
don't have a pot to piss in. You're like
Nothing.
your
Literally.
Wendy's moments were very funny
Wednesday
because my husband and
taco.
I,
Yeah.
our date nights were McDonald's, and then we would go just window shop at Barnes and Noble and look at books because we couldn't afford to buy any books. It was like dollar menu and window
I used to
shop.
love to do that. Just so you know, Barnes and Nobles was my window shopping.
Absolutely.
I
It
was the
was great. So I
same.
heard you say that and I was like, all right, yep, I
It's
get it.
true.
So at what point did you and JR come up with the idea for this business? How did the business begin?
Well, it's funny because JR was, 20 years older than me.
Hmm.
Had success before, but had lost everything when he had met me. So he was at the bottom of, a place that somebody can be, where instead of him saying, well, I'm at the worst place ever, he kept saying, we can only go up from here. And that was such a great leader for me
Yeah.
because, obviously I came from, there was four of us kids and my parents, we didn't have any money. We were struggling to get by paycheck to paycheck. There was more month at the end of the money for my own family. My mom, like you said, worked $3.35 an hour at the dry cleaners. He said to me, and my brothers and sisters who were working for us, he said, one day people will shop online and they will buy their shoes online, their clothes online. And we all looked at him like he was an alien, at
We're
first,
like
because,
online.
it's in
What?
1992, he's telling us people are going to shop online. Now, you're 2 years younger than me, probably. Well, I graduated in 86, but I'm, 51, and I'm used to, going to the library and using the Dewey Decimal System, to check out books. And most people here who hear
Yeah.
this will never even know what that is.
I was working in the
Right?
White House in 1992, or sorry, I was working on the campaign in 1992, the White House in 1993 of the Clinton administration. And we didn't have email. We had like inter-office like envelopes that people used to roll
Exactly.
around on a little cart. So
And then
when you're like, there's no
sign the
internet.
envelope. Exactly. So when he said that to us, he was like, we were like, what do you mean people are going to shop online? He's like, well, they're going to buy their clothes and their shoes and their
Wow.
vitamins. And we thought, okay, but this is 1992. People didn't even have computers. The only computer that really existed was in the library. And some people were fortunate enough to have one at home. And so we bought all these old computers and we visualized people buying shoes and clothes and vitamins online in 1992. And we would talk to people about, you should let us sell your product. And we have customers online. And at the time we might've had 5. And, but it was enough for us to believe. It was enough for us to believe that it was going to happen, that, more would come and that we could see the vision. And so we were not tainted. I think also when you're not tainted and you don't have people telling you that it's impossible to do, the only thing we ever thought, Laura, was that it was possible, that we could do it and that people would buy one day online. And with that vision, of course, Amazon also started in 92 and, they advertised, we didn't. We got people together and said, hey, all these little entrepreneurs, if you want to have your own shopping site online, let's do it together. And before you know it, here we are today, $1 billion a year, each year later, started in a very small apartment, never quitting, never, we packed boxes. We were the ones who answered the phones. We were the bubble wrapping, taking the calls, changing our name when we'd answer the phone. I'd be like, hi, thanks for calling Market America. This is Tina. How are you? Because you didn't want them to get the same person every time.
Oh, yeah.
And we did whatever it took. And I go back and I think about those days and I'm grateful for them because they're who we are. It's what made us, today. But it was never easy. Nobody wanted to sell us a product because, nobody believed in the internet back then. Now, we get 1,000 submissions a month and you take maybe one, so times have changed. But I feel like it takes a lot. And Laura, that most people won't put in that energy, but the ones that will make it.
Yes.
They always do.
So one of the things that you talked about in your keynote, which was incredible because it's basically the subject of my next book, is the terror of success, right? That moment when you're like, oh my God, I've now felt success. It's starting to work. And I know I sent you a little overview, but just for people who are listening, the next book's going to be called Wonderhell. And I'm doing these interviews for research for it. And it's about this moment when you're like, it's incredible. It's amazing. It's humbling. It's wonderful that anybody wants to spend even 5 seconds looking at a thing that I wrote or that I created or that I'm selling. And also, I've never been so exhausted in my entire life. I'm full of stress. I'm full of anxiety. It's actually hell. It's wonder hell. And wonder hell is the moment where the burden of your potential walks into your psyche and is like, hey, Loren, what you got for me? You have now
Yeah.
seen what you were capable of, the glimpse of what the next step could be. Are you going to step into this newfound you, or are you going to let it pass you by? And when it happened to me, when Limitless came out and it was, Washington Post bestseller, and Robin Roberts said it was her favorite book of the year, Good Morning America, Today Show, all that, it came out of nowhere and it was shocking to me. And I was on an airplane sitting between like two linebackers that were like, snoring on me. And I was like, I want more. Like I've been on Today Show. I want to be on Good Morning America. I want to be the Oak Tree with Oprah. She's got to talk to somebody. Why not me? I want celebrities to write about my books. Like,
Exactly.
I had that moment where I was like, oh, I actually have a bigger ego than I thought. I didn't realize how much I wanted. And I think the burden of your potential shows you just how much you feel that burden is in
Yeah.
equal amounts to the amount of ego you have. And so I started doing this research to find out, like, well, how do I survive this? How do I get through this moment? And everything I read was about surviving the stress. And it was like lean in and grind harder and 10x and all this stuff. And or what I found was like the exact opposite, which was like take bubble baths and self-care and do yoga and balance. And
Yeah,
neither one of
totally
those things
not
felt
me. I know,
neither one of
not
them
me,
felt
but
right to me. But here's what I realized, that it's not about surviving your wonder hell. It's about looking forward to it and thriving it. Because on the other
yeah.
side of this wonder hell is the next one and the next one and the next one. And you're going to keep figuring out every new level has a new devil, but it also has a new glimpse of what you're made of. So I'm really interested in those moments along the way when you were like, oh, we have 5 customers. I thought maybe we could have 50. Actually, we could have 5,000. Actually, we could have 500,000. Actually, we could have 5 million, right?
Yeah.
Talk about those moments when you were like, this is just as scary as failure.
Yeah, I think it's always been scary. I mean, even now, like when I think about it, but there's been many moments. I mean, some of them have stood out to me, obviously, more than others, because you're like in your face and you
Yes.
think you've hit the pinnacle of success, and then you kind of feel like slightly bored because you know you can do more. You want
Yes.
more of a challenge. And I'm extremely motivated person. So for me, everything's a goal, everything's a challenge. Everything's like, ooh, somebody couldn't do that in my company. Even if I don't know it, I'll learn it. Because
Mhm.
I still treat myself like somebody who works for my company, because I want to impress. I want to shine.
Mhm.
And I don't need people to, I don't need all the fanfare. I do it for me. And so
Yes.
I always want to get to the next level. And people are always like, why are you doing that? You don't have to, because I want to do it. I want to see what's possible while I'm here.
Interesting. Right.
I'm always want to see what's possible when I'm here, because remember, I didn't get a formal education. I told you, I didn't go to college. The closest I ever went to college is I speak on entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? I have those, honorary degrees from University of Miami, where somebody, they're like, whoa, they always get shocked when I say this is the closest I've ever been. And I think it's because I've had this strong passion and desire burning inside of me that I know I can be better and do better. And I think, when we've gotten to that point, when we hit our first million, everybody was like, yes, yes, we did it. And all I kept thinking about was, while we have momentum, we can't stop. While we
Yes.
have momentum, we can't stop. We have to push harder, because, it's a snowball effect, right? When things are good, you really make it, but people don't realize that it's much easier to get to 10 million than it is a million.
Mhm.
And so what you have to do, though, in order to do that, there's one major step you have to do. You have to push that snowball over the mountain, because otherwise you just fall backwards, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was always about seeing what was next. I needed to get over the mountaintop so I could see what the view was. I needed to see what the potential was. I needed to see what I was possible of doing. And I think, the more we, for me, it was like, how can I communicate with more customers? How can I give them more of what they want? How can I find out more about them? I wanted to know who she was, who he was, what they were buying, how many pets they had, how many children they have, how many more products can I sell one customer without having to keep expanding, getting more customers. And that was really important to me. It was a goal. Like it was obsessive. I was
Mhm.
obsessed. People would be like, okay, well, there's others. There's new ones out there. I know, but I want to focus on her. I know who she is. I know how many cats she has, how many dogs she has. I know if she's married, if she's single. I know how many, clothes she has to buy, how many shoes she has to buy. I know what shoe size she is. And I became so obsessed with knowing everything I could about who she was and who he was, that I didn't need to worry about who that other customer was that we would bring on. And I didn't realize that over 29 years, that would pay us for the rest of our lives, because people realized that loyalty was critical, that I was loyal, that I cared about people, what people wanted, that I listened to what their needs were, and that it wasn't always a constant turnover of people. Now, of course, I care about the new customer. I want the new customer, right? But I'm so focused. We often hear, like, you ever hear, like, you hear about your friends and they, get involved with an organization, or right now I'm doing actually estate planning, which sucks. Nobody wants to do that, okay?
Yeah.
And it sucks. And you're doing it, and you have people that you think they're the right ones. You sign up being a client with them, and as soon as you're a client, then they're looking for the new person. They already got you, so they don't need to treat you special. I wanted to treat our people special. I wanted them to know that I cared about them, that I was interested in what they needed, what they wanted. And so those goals took my mind to another place. How can I serve them better? What can I do for them better? And I've done that my whole life with goals. But it's interesting because my husband is 19 years older than me. And just a couple years ago, he came to me and said, Lauren, we've done an amazing business together. For the last literally 30 years, we've built a company to $1 billion a year. We put away $1 billion personally. We've done a lot of great things, but do you want to do it one more time together? And I looked at him and I said, you got the energy? And he said, I got the energy. Do you? I got the energy. He said, let's go. And for the last 2 years, we've been on a mission to take the company to what we believe will be from 1 billion to 5 billion in the next 5 years. That's our 5-year mission. And then we can say, if we want, hey, we can go take an extra long vacation. We can slow down, show up a little bit, less, put the right people in place. And I love that because we can see it. We know what 5 billion looks like because it's here. We might not have it on paper yet, but it's here.
Yeah.
And we're going to get there. And I think it's the driving force. It's the driving factor. Like, I feel like my every day since I'm 17, Laura, all I see is this big clock I keep in my office. And it just keeps ticking. It doesn't stop. And I keep thinking I'm a race against the clock. I'm going to race against the clock. I'm going to get where I need to be. And I've used time and death to get me everywhere I need to be and remind me how precious it is. Because, we can blow money, we can waste money, but we shouldn't be wasting time. It's not something we can earn again. It's not something we can get back. And so for me, it's the one central force that will continue to move me no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got back from a week away with my family. And on one of the days I went fly fishing with my eldest, who's about to go to college in the fall. And we caught I caught one fish. He caught no fish. I caught one fish. And the fish was literally 4 inches big. Like I caught bait. Okay. I got it. Right? So I'm out there, like I'm a princess, right? I'm out there in my waders and we're like, it's dirty and it's gross, but it was beautiful and it was quiet. It was 2 of us and it was just time. It was just time together. And you can't buy that. You just can't buy that. And what I love about your story is that there was no part of your story where you were like, I grew up with not a lot of money. I watched my mother work hard. I watched my father not have a lot of choices. I wanted to make a lot of money. No, you were like, I want to do something that I love. I want to do something that empowers and changes people and helps so many people. And even your story now about going from 1 billion to 5 billion, it's not about making more. Like, there's only so much money you can actually spend, right? It's not about making more. It's about solving a puzzle. It's interesting, right? It's interesting. You are solving a problem a different way. Yes. Yes.
And I think it's about the push to get to the next place. It's more, for me, the proof in my heart, in my mind, of what we're capable of doing. Because, in estate planning, you realize, like, wow, I've probably made too much money. When you think about what happens at the end of life for your own children, you think about money becomes a liability in some ways. I know that sounds funny, and you're probably haven't had to go through it like I have. It's been the most challenging time when you think you've spent your whole life building this. For me, money was always the scoreboard. It wasn't anything I counted on. I look on and be like, oh, okay, we're doing okay. Mm-hmm. It was more about how many people I helped along the way.
Yes.
How many people I helped to get where they needed to be. And that's where I am. I'm like, the 1 to 5 billion is more about how many more people can we move? How many more people can we help? How many more people can we get to see how to build their business and believe in themselves? And so, naturally, in my conferences, even like some of my executives, everybody's such an amazing speaker and everybody's like, well, what do you want to speak about? I never share it with anybody right away because I really want to share what I've been through myself, which is how I've overcome and used pain to push me to success. And, how I've used, this to get me where I need to be without the education. Because I truly believe that, we're not born with necessarily an education or money unless you've inherited it. You have to be able to use your mind to get you where you want to be. And for me, my parents didn't have the money to send me to college, and I didn't have the grades either. And so for me, I needed to do what I needed to do. I needed to prove to my dad, to me, to my mom, to myself, but mostly to myself, that I could do whatever I set out to do, and that I was going to win no matter what. Even if I failed, I was going to win. And I think that's what people fail to realize, that failing is so part of the process. There is no way to get to success without going through the process. And people often say, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot as a great speaker, is that, people say, oh my God, I can never do what you do. How do you do that up there? And I'm like, this was the easy part. Going up on the stage is the easy part. The process is getting to the point where you can get up on stage and have the material that you've built in your mind that is real, that you can connect with. That's why I never really need a lot of notes or anything, because I'm always speaking from my heart. So, you have to, the process is the work it takes to get to the place you've gotten. And people don't understand that. They want the rainbows, but they don't want the rain. They want a great marriage, a great relationship, but they don't know how to communicate. Everybody wants to get rich, but don't want the risk, and it's not possible. It's impossible. And I try to tell people along the way, if you're looking for that silver lining or the golden wrapper in Willy Wonka's candy, it's not real. Doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is what you've determined and made up your mind you're going to do. And if you're willing to do it, regardless of what the chances are against you, regardless of who's in your corner or not, if you're going to go the distance. And that's, as you know, Laura, it is very few of us, but yet there could be so many more. That's the thing that drives me crazy. So many more people could be successful if they just saw it and believed in themselves and didn't quit.
But they're so busy complaining about the results they're not getting from the work they're not doing. And you're just like, and they're like, I'm busy. And I'm just like, busy doing
You're
what?
busy.
Like,
exactly. I hate when people
bullshit. It's busy.
And I talk about that.
Yeah.
It is bullshit. People are busy and they're bullshit. Listen, we all have the same amount of hours in the day. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. And I tell everybody, like, if you want, even tell my daughter this, if you want something to happen, stay up later. You want something to happen, wake up earlier. If you want to do something, you can change it. You know what? Sleep less, do more. Sometimes I'll get 3 or 4 hours of sleep just to get it in. Whatever it takes, nothing's going to stop me. I'm not the girl who says, well, I got to go. If I want to go to the big event and I'm not done, I cancel the big event. I can't tell you how many times I've sacrificed what's the fun thing to do in order to get done the thing I need to do. And I learned along the way that the fun thing was what I was doing to get where I wanted to be. Like, it's really obsessive. It's really in a good way. You kind of get obsessed with the process. When you finally hit a goal, or you get where you want to be and you're like, whoa, I did this. How did I do this? You really feel like, wow, I think I can do more. I think I can actually do more.
And that's the Wonderhell moment when you're like, maybe I set my goal too low. Maybe actually, and then you're like, well, now what? Like, what do I need? Who do I need? What do I need to know? And then you start thinking about the people who are around you. Are they the ones helping me get to the next place? Like, there's that Jim Rohn quote that people talk about ceaselessly, which is like, you're the average of the 5 people you keep closest to you, which is true. But then there's a better quote that I recently found by John Wooden, the legendary UNC you're North Carolina, not North Carolina basketball. Who said, you will never outperform your inner circle. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to be the average of the 5 people. I want to have an inner circle that keeps pulling me and pulling me and pulling me. And your inner circle should also include people that you're mentoring and bringing up, because what's the best way to get rid of imposter syndrome? Teaching somebody something you know, it like reminds 100%. You that you actually know something. But to have people who are constantly pulling you to the next place and helping you get to that next place and all going together. I mean, there's a real theme in every story you've told, which is like, it's about the people and it's about the loyalty and it's about seeing them. Like, I love what you're saying about really knowing your current customers, because how do you get, people talk all the time about new customer acquisition, but it's much more expensive. New customer acquisition is way more expensive than keeping the customers you have. And by the way, who's going to be the best salesperson for your new customers? Your current customers, right? So it makes tons of sense.
Why not?
I think people think it's a land grab, and they think that they should grab as much current money as they possibly can, when often I think future money is worth a lot more than current money. Like if you spend
It
the
really
time
is.
doing the hard work for the stuff that you can't see today, but you know will pay off tomorrow, you make dividends on that.
That's
So
what I say. It's
yeah,
residual income,
yes,
because it costs a lot to get more and more new customers. And for me, I always say, guys, if you want to build residual income, and it's mine and my husband's philosophy, where whatever you do over the last 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, should pay you for the rest of your life. And so for me, I always
yes.
teach our people, like, work with those customers, find out everything you can about them, find out who they are. When you look at QVC or HSN's model, one of the great things I learned over there is how they're so connected to their customer. They know who she is. They know that she has 11 seconds. They know she's paying attention for a moment. If you don't get her in that first 11 seconds, she's gone. Like, they really identify with and connect with who she is, which is why they don't have to constantly add new customers, because the customer they have is a lifetime of value.
Right, right, right. And yeah, I mean, that's incredible. So seeing people, having your family, the loyalty has been very important, building a business with your husband, with your family members.
Yeah.
You've also got a lot of celebrity friends. I'm sure people are knocking on your door all the time. How did
Yeah.
you start opening yourself up to other people and trusting other? I mean, how do you decide who to
Well,
bring into the fold, who to bring onto the
it's
boat?
funny. It's funny that who to bring on the boat, and we say that, who should we bring on the boat? That's our thing. And my one of my closest and longest friends is Jennifer Lopez. And we've been one of my best friends for literally nearly 20 years. And I think when you have somebody that you love and somebody who loves you, and you really make time to encourage each other and support each other, and are not afraid to listen to each other and say, you know what, I think you should try this instead. Or what do you think about this idea instead? We're all super protective of each other. I remember when, Jennifer had just gotten separated from Mark Anthony, and she had given, there's like 5 of us in our little circle with her. And she had given us all these rings that said, I love me. And it was really a beautiful little diamond ring. And it was important for us to all remember how important it is to love ourselves, before we love anyone else. It's so important to love who you are, because I think a lot of times people make the mistake of being people pleasers. They want everybody to love them. They want everybody to love them, but they don't love themselves. And so for Jennifer, she was always so great with reminding us about loving ourselves first and taking care of ourselves. And I think when you surround yourself with amazing people, that falls into place with others, so others see how you are. So, I have Serena Williams has been a long time, very close friend of mine, or Eva Longoria, or Alicia Keys, another one who's full of love and light and brings all the good things to you and none of the bad things. And then I have, where the people like myself who aren't celebrities, but are hardworking and trying to make it and successful. And I think when you bring in the right people who have the right amount of support and love, and they're not afraid to embrace you, and there's no motives behind it. I've been so conscious about who to bring on the boat all these years, but my circle's not much changed. I never say, well, I don't want to meet new friends. It's just that it's hard to, fit into a group of people who actually constantly motivate each other, who are constantly encouraging each other. People aren't used to that.
They're not. And especially in this like celebrity culture where like people are praising the Kardashians and, it's like, what are you famous for? You're famous for being famous. Like, let's look at the list that you just rolled off. J-Lo works her ass off. Well, not technically, because she has a great ass, but she works so hard. Like after her, I mean, it's amazing. Like after her Super Bowl show with Shakira, and it was incredible. It was
she was on the boat. We had a party on the boat for her.
It was unbelievable. And I posted something on social media because, she had an album called Limitless. My book was called Limitless. And I was like, this is Limitless embodied. And I wrote a whole thing about her. And I tried to get to her people. And of course I couldn't because, that's hard to do. But J-Lo works so hard. Serena Williams.
She does.
The GOAT. I mean, like,
she's
incredible.
The GOAT. She's the greatest.
She could retire. She puts in the work. Eva Longoria stands up for women's issues. She's promoting Latina women issues.
She truly believes that she uses her celebrity for a greater force, for a greater good. And she does.
Right.
And Alicia too.
all talent. And she's like, you know what? I'm not even going to wear makeup. I'm not going to do the bullshit thing that everybody thinks celebrities
Yeah,
should
she's
do. And I'm going to
amazing.
come out here. I'm going to be in my talent. So like just that list and you working so hard every single day. None of you need to be doing this anymore, but there's something in common that you all have, which is the
There's a common
respect for the
thread.
work, the process, right?
Yeah, it's the process. And I think that process is so important. It's like, I was just actually last week on vacation with Alicia and the kids, and we were in the Bahamas, and I was going to bed, not early because I don't go to bed early, but I was going down to my room because I thought everybody was going to bed. So I went down there, and I like to read on my computer, on my books. And she wrote me a text that, hey, you want to spend a moment together upstairs and have a vodka shot and chill out and talk, catch up with life and have a sister moment. And I thought,
Yeah.
you forget how important those moments are. And she reminded me how important it is to take that moment for yourself. So we went out there, and before you know, we were 5 shots in, having the best time of our life, laughing. Nobody else was up, but crying, laughing, doing what girlfriends do, what sisters do, being there, supporting each other. And those moments are just as important as the ones that bring in the money. Those moments are the ones that make you who you are.
I think those moments sustain you to help you bring in the money.
They keep you going. They keep you going. They keep you going. They push you. And, I remember just like having the shot with them. And then I remember thinking, wow, I just had a moment for the first time of like where I was able to catch up since COVID with any of my friends, because we all talk by FaceTime, but we haven't been able to hug and be in person. And we sat there under a blanket and hugged, and we're just happy to see each other. And I think, when you have somebody that you love and people that you love and you really are grateful for each other, then nothing can come between that. That just empowers you that much more to make it. You can really believe that, like you said, you can achieve anything. It's limitless, right? So those are the moments that I still live for today.
Yeah, I mean, I think those moments they remind us that we're not the person everyone thinks. Like, my name is Laura Gassner Otting, but everyone calls me LGO, right? Like, I can be LGO on stage. Like, I know how to be that person, right? Like, I know how to be, Sasha Fierce's Beyonce. Like, I know how to do the thing on stage. But then I go back to my room after and I curl up in a ball and I order room service. I don't even put the TV on because I don't want any
we're all
other
human.
input, right? And I think it reminds you that you're not the person everyone else has assigned to you. You are you.
Yeah.
And
I say that all the time. I say that all the time because people want to label you or give you an identity, and that's not necessarily what your identity is. Like, sometimes I'll even write to my pastor, and it's funny because I grew up Jewish, but I go to church too with my kids, and I wrote him, and I was like, I live such a crazy life, and I wrote him, I was like, I just want you to know that what I have is not who I am. It's not my identity. And he wrote me, I know that. And, I think it's important that sometimes when people think or see you in a different light, that you remind them and you remind yourself, like, I'm still me. Like, I've never forgotten where I've come from. You know what I mean? It's like, my husband was laying in bed yesterday, and it was funny. He must have thought I was asleep. And I remember he leaned over to me. He's like, I love you more than anything. Still today, you're my best friend. And I remember looking back at him, and I was like, I'm up, I said, I'm up. And he goes, I'm glad you heard me, but I didn't think you were up. But, sometimes you need to remember that and be reminded in those moments that the people you have are the good ones.
Yes.
And, it's good to know that when they think you're not listening, they're still the good ones. And that's really important.
Yeah, it's so important. I think it's so important to keep the right people around you and to have that sense of perspective, because I do like I think one of the reasons that my son and I had so much fun fly fishing is that we had no expectation. We had no expectation about what it was going to be, how many fish we would catch. And I think the gaping chasm between expectation and reality is so disappointing. I think that's where madness lies. It's where sadness lies. And I've had a number of assistants. So when I ran my search firm, I had the same assistant for 10 years. She was absolutely incredible. But when I left, I lost I sold my business to my people. They helped me build it. I lost the assistant, in the departure. And I've had like 5 assistants since, and I have one now who's incredible. But the mistake I made with the first 4 that I hired was that I hired people who thought I was the person they saw on the outside and who wanted to work with that person. And then they come to
Yeah.
work for me and they realize I'm a hot mess, and it's their job to make me look like the person I am
You know
on the
what? You
outside
just
there.
might have just opened up my eyes to something. That was a good one. I learned something from that one. That's a good one because I'm still looking for great help. But you know what? That's a really good point.
Yeah,
And
because
yet
that
I'm not trying to
people have this
even be that
expectation.
person, but they label you
Right,
that way. So it's like,
and then they're
yo,
so
I'm actually
sad.
not that. No, I know they're so sad. Like, oh wow, I thought you were that glamorous girl who wore makeup every day, and you were like a, like
Right,
it's tough. You were trying to be ferocious all day long, and so
right.
that is a really, really good point because it's a label that people give us, and we're trying to live up to, and it's like, couldn't I just be me? I'm just me.
Right. Right, because they think they'll come work for you. You have this like magic Lauren sauce and you're
Oh
all
my
amazing and they're gonna
God,
learn from it and then they're gonna be magic. And you're like, no, I'm a human, just like
I'm a
you. And
human.
I think they're so heartbroken by your reality versus their expectation
They
that
can't
they don't know what
handle
to
it.
do with
No,
themselves.
they can't handle it. They're like, this isn't what I expected. You're like, oh, sorry, it's just me. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? But you're right. That is the biggest, well, that's a good takeaway for me for today. That's a good one. And I agree with you. And I think, it's hard because I think that we are put in these by other people. That's why I always remind people, I'm not who you think, I'm not your
I'm not
identity.
what
I'm
I
my
have.
identity.
Yes,
You
and
know
I'm
what?
not
I'm
what I
not what I
have, I think is
have.
really good. Mhm.
I'm not what I have. And that's just the scoreboard for me. And occasionally I glance at it. And like you said, people don't understand that there's only so much money you can make. And for me, it's always about the psychic income of helping other people and what I can do to
Yeah.
get there. It's about seeing what I can do to help somebody. I was playing baseball with my grandson yesterday, who's 7. And he's like, Mimi, I'm not very good at sports. I said, well, let's just see. Now, I'm the worst at baseball, but I figured, what do we have to lose? And I have this, we're in Greenwich at our home here for the summer. We have this big, beautiful yard. So whatever it takes to get us out of the house. And I took him out there. I was like, okay, so here's what you got to do. Now, both my brothers played baseball, so I have a little bit of knowledge. So I was like, just look at the ball. Just look at the ball. Don't worry about me. I'm going to pitch you the ball. And if I throw it too high, you don't even have to hit it. Don't worry. It doesn't count. But just pay attention to the ball. This kid smacked that ball so many times that his face lit up. He had never hit a ball like that in his life, didn't think it was possible, didn't believe that sports were good for him, didn't believe he was made for that. He thought he's just good at video games and be a coder one day. And I said to him, I said, Aiden, do you see how good you are hitting that ball? And he said, Mimi, I'm kind of like really good, right? I was like, you could be a professional at this. He's like, you think I'm like a real slugger? I was like, a real slugger. And I just saw his face light up. And you know what? I feel like we forget how important that is. We forget how important it is to light people up, to remind people how good they can be at things, that they are great, and that you don't have to be great at everything. And you are great at so many things that you don't even realize. And, I remember too growing up, my dad would be like, oh, don't do that. You'll never be good at that. Or forget about being rich one day. That'll never happen. And, you're never going to have people working for you. You ought to just be, the Eastern Airlines flight attendant, or you have people tell you you'll never make it. And it's so important to remind people that they're possible.
It is
that
so
anything
important.
that they want.
Yes.
Your son,
yes.
it's not about your son catching all the fish. It's about the process. And you know what? I saw my mom catch this little fish, so I know it's possible.
Yes. I mean, and it's
that's so important.
Yes, it's so like I did an interview with Mark Metry earlier for the book, and he told me about this idea about the reflected self, that we're not who we think we are, and we're not who others think we are. We're who we think others think we are, right?
It's
so
true.
The fact that your grandson is who he thinks you think he is, a real slugger, means that he will become that. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know what? You want to be great? Awesome. Go tell other people they're great. Like, go find something great in someone. Like, I think my superpower, if I have any, is that I can see the greatness in someone else and in fairly short order reflect it back on them in ways that they can finally, for the first time, see it, and maybe for the first time actually act upon it. I'm not
agree
great.
with you.
I just know how to find their greatness. And it's so easy to like just look at somebody. Again, here's your theme, right? You see people, you are loyal to people, you see their greatness and you bring it out in them just by showing them their greatness. You didn't make him a slugger. You just showed him that he was. And now that changes his identity.
It just changes how they feel, how they see things, what's possible. And I really believe that we don't do it enough. I remember when, My daughter was like 11 years old, and she kept telling JR that she wanted to be a dolphin trainer. And he said, okay, if you want to be a dolphin trainer, I'm going to show you what that's like, because it's not as glamorous as it seems. There's a lot of work that goes into being a dolphin trainer. But if you want to be one, we're going to try it. So he rented out the sea aquarium. And he took her behind the scenes, and all day long for 8 hours, she cleaned fish, bloody, nasty fish in a bucket, yucks. And very little time was training that dolphin. Very little time was feeding the dolphin the fish. And by the end of the day, she said, Dad, this is a really amazing thing. Like, I'm really glad I got to experience it, but I don't really want to be a dolphin trainer anymore. And because, you realize that it's not all rainbows, right? That there is rain, that some things are hard. The process is hard to get there. Yes. And so I think that, we have this tendency, like you earlier said, that we have a tendency to tell people, these are your choices, which way you're going to go, rather than showing people that they have all this potential. Mm-hmm. And they can do and be anything they want. And I think that is the difference between people like yourself and other people who are out there who say, like you said, I want to make it, but they complain. They don't want to change things. You got to change the circumstances. You got to get out of that rut. You got to stop feeling sorry for yourself. You got to step up to the plate and say, you know what? I'm getting ready to go in. I'm going to go in so hard. It's going to be painful. It's going to be a bloody mess. I'm going for it. But you know what? Nothing's going to stop me. And when people get to that point, things happen. When they happen, you're like, oh, that happened? Oh, I can do that. And
you're like, well, look at me now. Yeah.
Look at me now. Exactly. Yeah. And you start to realize, like, wow, life isn't that bad. And the process is really pretty interesting.
And you know what? It's fatal.
And failure is not fatal. Exactly. Yes. And it's not permanent. And we can keep doing, we can keep getting back up. And like you said in the very first sentence, we can thrive. Because it's not about surviving. It's really about thriving. It's we've already learned that last year we're not prepared for anything. I think we all as Americans and around the world learned that, we're not prepared for everything by far, but we made it. We made it. And here's the thing. We don't want to just survive. Like you said, we want to thrive. How do we thrive? How do we do the things that we're going to do? How do we live life? For me, it's about living life in a way that reminds me that I'm standing in line. And I don't know when he's going to call me. I don't know when my time's up, but I know one thing, I'm going to stay super busy, and I'm going to make impacts, not only on other people's lives, on my own life and my children's life. And I'm going to let them see what's possible while I'm standing in that line. So when my time is called and he calls me out of line, then I know I've given my best. Yes. And I want to do that. That's all I care to do.
Yes, because it's not the years in your life, right? It's the life in your years. And
it's the life in years, what you do with that dash, between that date you're born and the day you die, that dash on your tombstone.
It's about the dash. It is. I could talk to you all day. I only asked for an hour of your time, and we're at the end of the hour. So I'm sorry.
I could talk to you forever too.
I know. I think you're amazing. You're fantastic.
I think you're amazing. We have to have lunch soon. We have to get together soon.
Yes. Well, I'm in Boston, so I'm right down the road.
Yeah, well, I'm going to Boston. I'll be in Boston July 22nd for 3 days.
All right. Well, cool.
Let's make it a date.
Let's make it a date.
You
amazing.
Text me. Let's do it. Let's make it a date.
Sounds good.
I love you.
Thank you for your time. I love you too.
You're the best, honey.
Okay. Bye-bye.